You're now watching Wayback Wednesday, sponsored by Floors Glass and Mirror Company, servicing the area since 1977 with residential and commercial work.
Good evening, friends. Welcome to another episode of Wayback Wednesday. I'm your host, Randy Adcox. Glad you could join us tonight. We've got a lot of ground to cover tonight. We've got a lot of pictures to show you. We're going to pay a tribute tonight to a local Rocky Mount business that's been around since the early 1900s, 1926 or 1927 at least. We'll get to that in just a minute. We're also going to kind of step back to a couple of pictures from last week and kind of revisit those. As you've heard me say many times on this show, it's really important to me that the information that I put out and that gets put out on this show, particularly regarding the history of Rocky Mount, is accurate. And with that being said, I need to make a correction tonight, and that's part of tonight's show with the pictures I'm going to show you in a few minutes. Last week I had actually ran across a couple of things that in my mind kind of linked together. And you know how it is when you get something that looks like it ought to fit together like a puzzle piece, you just assume that it does, and in this case it did not. So anyway, we'll get to that in just a minute. I'll show you some pictures, as I said, that'll kind of put all this together for you. A couple other quick notes. Spiro Canucleus bust is now resting comfortably at Brazel Memorial Library. I took him up there today, and the girls up there were very gracious, and Tracy and other couple ladies up there allowed me to put him up there on the shelf, and so he is now one of 4 works by Mr. Frank Thigpen. There are 3 other busts that Frank has done, actually 4, but 2 of the same man up there. But in any case, if you want to go by and see the bust of Spiro Canucleus, he is at the public library now on the 2nd floor in the history room up there, and he's proudly on display with a couple other busts that Mr. Frank Thigpen done many, many years ago. Also want to say thank you, of course, again to those who call in each week. Those of you that come by to visit me, Eric Dawson, always good to see Eric, always good to hear from him, and he keeps me on my toes for sure. He's the one that pointed out the error that I put out last week. And real quickly, I just wanted to address that. As I mentioned at the top of the show, I'd found a couple listings. I've got a collection online on my computer, I should say, not online, but on my computer, of old Rocky Mount City directories, a couple of 3 old Rocky Mount City phone books. I've acquired several thousand pictures since I've been doing this show. And so I ran across a listing in a city directory, and I ran across a picture that we showed last week of some Nash County draftees headed off to the Korean War, and they were standing in front of a garage that was W.L. Cockrell Garage. You may remember this picture from last week. And about the same, while I was researching last week's show, I stumbled across a reference to a young lady whose last name was Cockrell, and it just so happened her first name was June. Well, I can't say I've known very many Junes in my life, and one that I did know of was June Brazel. And so I just kind of assumed that that was June's maiden name, and Eric was the one to point out to me first that nope, that was not her maiden name. And I have since done a little more research. I went by Rocky Mount Radio Works this week and talked to Chuck over there and got his take on the whole family history and the Rocky Mount Radiator, how it came to be and the family history and so forth. So I've got a couple dozen pictures to share with you tonight that kind of traces the evolution of Rocky Mount Radiator Works. And you know, we've done this kind of thing in the past. If you remember here several months ago, we did a little segment one night on the Pigeon Tire and Auto Center. And they're just one of many businesses in Rocky Mount that have been in existence close to or more than 100 years. In Rocky Mount Radiator's case, I think first went into business somewhere around 1926 or 27, so they're quickly approaching that 100-year mark. And there's going to be a few others that we're going to address in future shows that have just been prominent businesses in Rocky Mount that have stood the test of time. So with that being said, I want to, first of all, let's jump into some pictures. And there's a couple I want to kind of go back to last week. If you remember, we showed some pictures from the old Rocky Mount High School. Bob Merritt called in. And by the way, thanks, Bob. I meant to mention you earlier. He called in last night and identified some of the people in those pictures from the old Rocky Mount High School days. And Eric found a couple of pictures in the 1951 Rocky Mount High Knocker and the 1952 High Knocker that identify those cheerleaders from both classes. So without further ado, Lee, if you would bring that first picture up. And this first one is actually the cheerleaders from the 1951 Rocky Mount Senior High School. And of course, you can tell this is the old high school on Marigold Street that was in later years R.M. Wilson Junior High School and is now a senior citizens home over there, apartments I guess you'd say. But in this picture here, this is from 1951 Rocky Mount High Knocker. Left to right, we have Miss Blanche Wilkins, Aubrey Kinney, Dot Whitley, Mickey Dawson, Ann Bullock, Carol Wiggs, and Betsy Carr. In the front, kneeling on the right-hand side, is actually Bo Thorpe, who was the head cheerleader in 1951. How about that? I would have thought the head cheerleader would have been a gal, but in any case, it says here, and this you can't see it on the picture because of the bar at the bottom, but this picture was captioned, and it says that in 1951, yes, the very front kneeling, Bo Thorpe was the head cheerleader. So, okay, all right, Lee, let's go to the next picture then. And some of these people you may recognize. This is from 1952 Rocky Mount High School. And again, I'll identify them left to right. Gene Cooper, Jimmy Shine, Sheila Robbins, Newsom Maples, Edith Ann Johnson, Richard Byrd, Dot Whitley, and Marlon Reed. So if you went to Rocky Mount Senior High and graduated in 1951 and 1952, these were your classmates, or at least some of them. And I thought you might get a kick out of seeing those people identified. And we got most of them identified last week, and I think that was from 1952. I'm not certain. But anyway, in these particular pictures here brought out of the High Knocker, they were all, of course, identified. And we thought we'd put them out there tonight for you just to kind of close that loop and identify all of them. Okay, so I mentioned at the top of the show that about Rocky Mount Raider Works, and it was a little embarrassing, to be honest with you, because I just had myself convinced that June Cockrell was later June Brownsville, and of course I was mistaken. She was not. The ironies here and the similarities, I should say, are really striking, and I'm not 100% positive. There was in the 1952 city directory, there were a couple different families with the last name Cockrell. And so I'm not 100% sure that June Cockrell in 1952 was, in fact, the daughter of Mr. William Cockrell that ran the Cockrell's Garage. She could have been, but I could not state that unequivocally, so I won't make that mistake tonight. But a couple things, and Lee, you can go ahead and bring that next picture up if you want to. I think this first picture will kind of, these are the two, and by the way, how ironic would it be? This was in 1952. Rocky Mount Senior High, 1953, Rocky Mount High Knocker. And on the left, there's Gene Cockrell. On the right, there's June Gideons. There's Eric. Hold on a minute. Hello, Eric. You're on the air.
All right. Mr. Cockrell that owned the radiator repair business on Washington Street, W.L. Cockrell. His daughter was Jean Cockrell. She is the person who married Mayo Body. And right in the same block, Chuck Braswell's mother, Jean Gideons, was associated with her daddy's radiator repair business.
Right. So, are you saying that June Cockrell was W.L. Cockrell's daughter?
Not June. It was Jane. It's Jean. Jean. Jean Cockrell.
Right. That was that. I know what you're saying. That was Mr. Cockrell's wife. But what I'm saying is, was June Cockrell
that was
his daughter?
Cockrell's daughter.
Are you saying it was not his daughter?
It was his daughter.
Okay, all right, that's what I wanted to. And that was a similarity I was talking about, because June Cockrell's father ran a garage. June Gideon's father ran a garage. They were actually pretty close together at one point.
Yeah, but let me stop you. Okay. The lady that was Mr. Cockrell's daughter, her name was Jean, not June.
Are you looking at the TV screen?
Yes.
Okay. So, okay, you're saying Jean and not June.
I always thought Mayo Body's wife, her name was Jean Cockrell before she married Mayo Body.
That very well may be. I don't know. Like I said, I was just.
Where did that picture on the left come from?
Both of these ladies were in a 1953 High-Knocker. They both graduated in 1953.
Okay. Well, that wouldn't have been the case for Mayo Body's wife, Jean Cockrell. She would have been born about 1929 or 30. She would have come out of high school before 1953. She would have come out of high school 3 or 4 years before that.
Right. So that's not the same Cockrell that was, as you say, married to Mr. Body. So I'm wondering, getting back to my original point, whether this June Cockrell was the daughter of Mr. W.L. Cockrell. That's what I'm wondering.
I don't know. She may have had a sister. I do not know.
Yeah. It would have been his daughter, not his wife's sister. It would have been his daughter with the age of these girls, because they were probably both 17, 18 years old in this picture.
Right.
And Mr. Cockrell, like I said, it could have, and I've been unable to make that connection between Miss June Cockrell and Mr. W.L. Cockrell. And as I said earlier, there were several different Cockrells in Rocky Mount in the 1950s.
And there was another, Mr. Cockrell that had the garage on Washington Street, had a brother whose name was Arthur. His place of business was over there on Howard Street, behind where Virginia's dress shop is now.
Right. All right, I got you. Okay.
All
right, buddy. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay, so anyway, as I was saying, it was really odd that I found two young ladies named June in 1952. They graduated together, Rocky Mount Senior High School. I've since found out, of course, the one on the right, Miss June Gideons, later married Linwood Brazel, and of course that's Rocky Mount Radiator. As I said, I've not been able to tie Miss June Cockrell on the left to W.L. Cockrell, and I'll do some more research. But a couple interesting points, and Lee, you can go to the next picture now. But this picture you're looking at right now, this is 649 South Church Street. And in the 1930, I'm sorry, let me back up a minute. Yeah, this is 649 South Church Street. In 1939, Rocky Mount Raider Works put Mr. Gideons put out a notice that he was moving from his prior location at 649 South Church Street to his new location. So if you kind of get your bearings here, that would be Bassett Street off to your right, going up, crossing over the railroad tracks. Central Building Supply is right there directly in front of you. Obviously the building here that's on in the foreground is Church Street. The building that used to be there has long been torn down. But the next picture, Lee, let's go to the next picture, is actually an advertisement that appeared in the Rocky Mountain. You can zoom out a little bit, Lee. This was Mr. And by the way, Chuck told me an interesting little story. He said Mr. Gideons, his name was Godfrey Gideons, but Chuck said he hated his first name. This is Chuck's grandfather. He said he hated Mr. Gideons hated his first name, so he requested that everyone call him by his nickname, which was Gid Gideons. So anyway, as you can see here, he put out a notice. This was in the Rocky Mount Telegram in 1939, and he said, "I wish to notify my friends and customers that I am no longer at 649 South Church Street, but have opened a radiator shop at 108 Marigold Street, opposite the A&P Supermarkets." And this is Mr. Godfrey Gideons, Rocky Mount Radiator Works. And as I said, this was in 1939. This ad appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram. So we're not exactly sure where he started, but an interesting thing, in the 1930 city directory, now I didn't print a picture of this location, but in the 1930 city directory, Rocky Mount Radiator Works was listed at 243 South Washington Street. So Chuck said today he thought the business started in 1927. I saw a couple references to where the business said it started in 1926. In either case, it looks like either the first or second location was actually at 243 South Washington Street, and then they moved from there over to 649 South Church Street in 1939, And then from there, they moved to the location over on Marigold Street. And Lee, you can go to the next picture now if you would. And this next picture is actually the location. This is 118 Marigold Street. As you can see, those buildings there are identified, I think 110 and 112, or 112, 114. But anyway, this is right across from the old City Lunch. And this was the location they moved to when they moved off of the Church Street address. Like I said, in 1930, the city directory has Rocky Mount Radio listed at 243 South Washington Street. And then in 1939, they moved to this location, 118 Marigold Street. Okay, we got a call. Let's get this call. Hello, caller, you're on the air.
All right. What you're looking at right there, when you're looking towards that front of where Mr. Gideon's place was at, as you look down the side of that building right there where that automobile is sitting, that's the alleyway there where the spur track went down beside George S. Edwards' wholesale grocery that sat right there where that car is sitting at.
That's right.
That railroad track, that spur track, is behind what used to be the city lunch.
That's right.
Crossed Marigold Street, and the railroad shoved boxcars down there to George S. Edwards and on down to the remainder of that block down to Hill Street. I don't never remember seeing a boxcar on the north side of Hill Street. But right there at the front of those stores right there is the general neck of the woods where Mr. Braswell's radiator shop was when I was a little boy. It sat on the corner right across the street from what was the Robbins' pool room.
Yeah, and you know, I realized I forgot to make one mention too. He was actually in two locations according to the city directory, because in 1939 he actually was at 108 Marigold Street, and in later years, I'll show you some ads in a minute where his address was actually listed as 118. So he was at 108 for a while and then at 118, so he moved like a couple of doors down from each other, or either took in more space. But in 1939, 108 is what's listed in the city directory as the address for Rocky Mount Radio Works. But yeah, you're exactly right. This is where the Edwards store would have been, and the city lunch would have been across the street from it.
That's right.
And the A&P right next to that.
Well, I can't tell you anything about 1939 because I was still running up and down my daddy's backbone. You understand what I'm saying?
I think I do. Yes, sir. I think I do. All right, buddy. I appreciate you here. All right. Okay, so let's go ahead and lead to the next picture then. So like I said, right now we're in 1939. Here we go. Now, this is, as I said, the first listing I saw was the address was listed 108. You see in the bottom left-hand corner of this ad, and this is from the city directory, by the way, now they're listed as 118 Marigold Street. And I found several ads with this street address on it. And in fact, let's go ahead and go through these, Lee. We'll kind of buzz through these right quick. There's two or three at least. There's another one, 118 Marigold Street, at the bottom of the screen there. And these are all either from the city directory or from the Rocky Mount Telegram. And by the way, I have just today, in fact, gotten access to a website called newspapers.com. It's a wonderful site. I spent a couple hours there today, not only preparing for the night show, but also researching some family history. It's just a wealth of knowledge, information, I should say there. It is subscription. You got to pay for it to get access to it, unless you go to the public library. You can go to the public library and use it for free because the library has a subscription there that's free to the public to use. But again, 118 Marigold Street, as you can see here in this ad. Let's go ahead and lead to the next picture then. And I think we're now in 1963 with this ad, and there was two or three from, there you go, and again, same 118 Marigold Street. Let's go ahead, Lee, to the next one. And they stayed here up until 1968. And you'll see all these, and these, again, these ads, the ones that are kind of yellowed come from the city directory. The ones that are more white in color or off-white, I pulled from the newspapers.com website today. So that's why the difference in coloration there. All right, let's go to the next one then. And again, I think this is the last one from 1963, this next picture here. And, okay, here we go. This is 1968. In 1968, They built a brand new space. Here was the grand opening article that appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram, where they built a location over at 319 South Washington Street. I've got a few more pictures from this location here, but I tell you what, Lee, let's bring it back to me a minute. This is a good time to take our first commercial break. When we come back, we're going to show you some more pictures from Rocky Mount Radiator Works and their evolution, where they moved from space to space. Right now, it appears they were in at least 5 and possibly 6 locations, maybe more. But obviously, as the business grew, they needed more space, and so that's what happened. And we'll cover all that in more detail in a few minutes. But for now, let's take a word for our sponsors. Don't go anywhere, folks. We'll be right back with more Wayback Wednesday.
You're now watching Wayback Wednesday, sponsored by Flores Glass and Mirror Company, servicing the area since 1977 with residential and commercial work.
I'm Daniel Moss, owner of Cornerstone Funeral Home, and I'd like to invite you and your family to give our family an opportunity to serve you in your time of need. And we offer a full line of funeral services, everything from visitations to graveside cremations on site with a live crematory, as well as a banquet hall to meet the catering needs of our families that we serve. We offer catering service. We offer refreshments prior to visitations and services of our family. And we want to invite you to come and experience the difference here at Cornerstone Funeral Home.
When faced with special care needs for elderly or disabled loved ones, families want compassionate, comforting care. That's Tender Touch Home Care Services' goal, providing the level of care we would expect for our own. With over 10 years of home care excellence, Tender Touch provides an array of services that keeps your loved one at home. From personal care, light housekeeping, errands, and meal preparation, to our private duty care program, which combines all of our home care offerings in one package.
Tender Touch Home Care Services, where your needs are our concern.
Hello, I'm Gus Tullis with Gus Tullis Insurance, and I'm here to talk to you about the extended open enrollment period for the Affordable Care Act, better known as Obamacare. Enrollment is available to anyone under age 65. Pre-existing conditions would not disqualify you, and I'm here to inform you of the subsidy that can be available to you based on your household income. You may not even be aware of the potential to improve your current subsidy. You need to take action because the benefits are available if you enroll between now and the August 15th deadline. Now I'd like to take a moment and share with you the annual household income chart. For example, this income chart shows a household of 1 earning a minimum annual income of $12,760 up to $51,040 and possibly more would qualify for a subsidy. Over the last 3 days, I've helped several folks qualify and sign up for the Obamacare plan. This could be you. To find out if you qualify for a general subsidy, call Gus Tullis Insurance at 252-937-6913. Your subsidy is waiting, but the August 15th deadline is fast approaching. Call me today, 252-937-6913.
You're now watching Wayback Wednesday, sponsored by Flores Glass and Mirror Company, servicing the area since 1977 with residential and commercial work.
And we're back. Folks, if you're just tuning in, you're watching Wayback Wednesday. We're talking about a Rocky Mount business that's been around since the early 1920s, 1926, 1927, Rocky Mount Radiator Works. Had a nice little chat with Chuck Brazel over there earlier today, and we talked about the history of the business and what he could remember. And then, as I said earlier, I had an opportunity to do some research today, and between the Rocky Mount city directories, and there are several. They go all the way back to the early 1900s. I think the oldest one I've got goes back to 1908 to 1909. And there are some spots where we don't have those for whatever reason. We don't have one for every consecutive year, and they stop, at least the online version that I found, stop at like 1963. So there are some gaps in the years, but between the city directories and the Rocky Mount City phone books, some of those are online too, by the way, and now that I have access to the newspapers.com website, it makes it, I won't say easy, but certainly easier to track a progression of these businesses, and not only businesses, but people and family members and so forth. It's been really interesting just getting used to using that website and looking at the information that's there. So anyway, we were talking about the Rocky Mount Radiator and how they have moved from place to place as the business grew and expanded. And I just want to back up for just a minute. We were talking earlier about Mr. W.L. Cockrell's business, and I meant to mention this earlier and I got sidetracked. In the 1930 city directory, Mr. W.L. Cockrell had a garage listed at 171 Albemarle Avenue. And then sometime that same year, he moved the business from Albemarle Avenue over to 231 South Washington Street. And this was in 1930. And in later years, up in the 60s, he was actually very close to Rocky Mount Radiator Works. And Chuck made a reference to that and said he thought that W.L. Cockrell's business, when he was on South Washington Street, and Rocky Mount Radiator, when they were on Washington Street, had what you might call a symbiotic relationship. I think Mr. Cockrell was more of a mechanic, did automotive repair work and so forth, while of course Rocky Mount Radiator focused more on radiators and repair work and so forth. And so I think they would send work to each other. They probably shared a customer base to some extent. And you know, Chuck brought up an interesting point that back in the 30s, 20s, 30s, and 40s, you couldn't just go to an auto parts store and buy a radiator for your automobile off the shelf. Most of them were hand-built or custom-built. Car suspension was not very good, so as cars went along roads, they were also not very good. They tended to shake, rattle, and shake a lot of things. Everything in the car shook, of course, and that was terrible for radiators. They were soldered together anyway. There were coils and different things that were kind of pieced together, different parts to make the radiator function as it did, and all the vibration and shaking quite often would cause cracks and leaks and so forth. So that's how the radiator repair business came into being. It was not only fabricating and building radiators for cars and trucks and so forth, farm equipment as well, but also doing the much needed repairs. And that business continues today, of course, and has grown exponentially since the early days. So Lee, let's jump back into our pictures. I think we stopped at picture number 9. The next picture, if we're on track, here you go. This is in 1968 when they moved. This was the new building, and you see the address is listed as 319 to 327 South Washington Street. And remember, Mr. Cockrell, at least up through 1963 that I know of, because that was the last city directory listing that I could find him. I don't have a city directory beyond 1963. But at least in 63, Mr. Cockrell's garage was at 231 South Washington Street. So they were literally about a block apart from each other at this point. And so, as I said, it was probably like a symbiotic relationship where if a customer came into one shop and needed a repair that shop didn't do, they would send them down the street to the next shop and vice versa. And so I think they probably had a fairly good working relationship between the two businesses. Okay, Lee, so let's go on then. This was in 1968, as I said. Rocky Mount Radiator built this new building on South Washington Street and moved in there. And I've got, you can go ahead and lead to the next picture now. And of course, this is Mr. Linwood Brazel, young man in this picture, and he ran Rocky Mount Radiator Works up until he passed away some years ago, and then his son Chuck is, of course, taking over the business now. And you can go ahead, Lee. I think this picture was actually taken in 1968 here from the Rocky Mount Telegram article. These were neat to me. This was a congratulatory section of the Rocky Mount Telegram that came out in 1968 congratulating Rocky Mount Radiator Works for their new move. And you see on the left-hand side, there's best wishes to the Rocky Mount Radiator Works from Carolina Machinery and Supply Company. I believe that was the old Camasco, which was right down the street on the corner of Hill Street and Washington Street. It was in early years, I think, Pepsi-Cola plant was in there. It was Bunco for a while. And of course, down the bottom, you see bottom left, there's Bryant Langley with the congratulatory ad there. Right in the center, you see Rawls and Winston Auto Parts. Of course, on the right-hand side, Mangum Manufacturing. And this was something that you don't see very often now when a business goes to a new location or has a grand reopening, that other businesses, and it kind of goes to show a little bit about, what other businesses around Rocky Mount thought of this company, and still do, I might add. That Rocky Mount Radio is still one of the more prestigious businesses in Rocky Mount. They've certainly earned a reputation, and so it's nice to see these kind of things. I wish we'd see more of this kind of stuff. All right, Lee, let's go to the next picture then. And there you go. This is obviously black and white, and this appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram also. And this was in their new location, of course. And you see the address there on the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, 319 South Washington Street. I read an article about, it was talking about one of the innovations that came about, and certainly Rocky Mount Radio Works was instrumental in bringing this about. And instead of just repairing problem radiators, a philosophy was brought into play whereby you did things like flushing out your engine block, flushing out your radiator core, replacing your belts and hoses, preventative maintenance, if you will, in a lot of cases. But Rocky Mount Radio Works, was very, very big, if you will, on this kind of preventative maintenance. They still are, I should say. They still have the same philosophy. And so it was kind of this, not just bring me your stuff when it's broke. It was more along the lines of, let's try to keep you going before you start having any problems. And so servicing your radiator, servicing your air conditioner, of course. These kind of things allowed Rocky Mount Radio to expand beyond just replacing and repairing radiators. So that was a neat article there to read. All right, Lee, let's go to the next one then. And I think this next picture, if I've got my pictures in order right, okay, yep. This one, I might be the last one here that was at the location. This was in 1977, I believe it was. I think we might have one or two more, actually. I'm looking at my notes here. But again, these are just showing some of the different things that they did, not only automobiles, but trucks, tractors, industrial equipment. Another neat thing about this said, "Hot Cars Wanted" became a slogan. And I'd forgotten that this was their slogan for many years. And I'm not sure, it may still be. I've not seen a recent advertisement. But I remember seeing this in multiple ads over the years that were put out by Rocky Mount Radio Works, "Hot Cars Wanted." It's a neat slogan for someone ready to repair business. Okay, Lee, let's go ahead into the next picture. And this next one, I believe, there you go. This was when I saw this, I had to stop and pause because I remember very well when this came about. Many of you will, I'm sure, particularly those who had any kind of relationship in the automotive industry, it was determined that the Freon, the R12 Freon that was used in automotive air conditioning systems, in fact, I think it was used in home systems as well, but it came to be known to have a problem where it would deplete the ozone, or at least contribute to depleting the ozone. And so there was a big push to do away with it. And Rocky Mount Radio Works was one of the first companies to actually implement a service by which you brought your car in, and they had a machine that would suck this old R12 refrigerant out of your car, and then they could dispose of it for you, and then R12 was replaced with and I won't try to guess the number now. There's been a few, I think, since R12 went out of existence. But again, this was just, one of the things that they kind of led the way with in this area. Not just, because I'm sure some companies just open up the valve and let the stuff bleed out into the air, which was a federal offense, by the way. But they actually had equipment that they could use to suck the refrigerant out, and then there was a means by which they could be disposed of without being just openly released into the environment and causing environmental problems that way. So, okay, Lee, let's go to the next one then. And I believe we're getting close to, okay, this was 1993, May of 1993, and their business had grown to a point where they needed a bigger place still. And this is a really nice article here that talks about the the migration of the business from place to place, the evolution of the business, how it grew from one-man operation to several men, from a 2 or 3 bay operation to I don't know, 8 or a dozen or so bays. But this is the new location when they moved over in 1993 out on 301 where they currently are now. And another neat thing, let me go to the next picture now, Lee, too. Another neat thing about when this happened, and this is a nice article here, so you see this is October 14, 1993, and I mentioned earlier about how Rocky Mount Radiator Works had implemented these procedures and maintenance operations to not just fix your car when it broke, but to actually do preventative maintenance and keep it, particularly your radiator and your cooling system in general, your block and so forth, in good running order. And so this is a nice article here that kind of goes through and talks about how they came to start offering this service, and it's really just a well done article. I'm not sure who wrote the article, one of their staff writers I'm sure, but anyway, really nice article there, and it kind of highlights a good bit of what's made this company one of the more well known and certainly respected Rocky Mount businesses. Okay, Lee, let's go to the next one, and I think, here we go. This was actually, I believe, a full page, 2 pages in fact. I mentioned earlier about the congratulatory notices, and when they moved out to 301, this was, I thought, really, really special because this is page 1. There's also a page 2, and there's a dozen or more ads on each one of these pages from other well-known, well-respected businesses in Rocky Mount. And again, it just kind of goes to show the respect, the mutual respect that other businesses in Rocky Mount have had for this company for going on 100 years now. They hit their 90th anniversary a few years ago, and quickly approaching their 100th anniversary, and that's certainly a milestone. And Lee, go ahead, this next picture is just the other side of this page here. And like I said, it was a big section, the entire, probably the middle section of the newspaper on this day. This was May the 9th of 1993. And these are just all the businesses that went in and posted a congratulatory ad in the Rocky Mount Telegram congratulating Rocky Mount Radiator Works for their move into this new facility. And I had the specs on my desk, and I meant to bring them, but I think it's something like, 8,000 square feet. It's just a really, really nice, it's been nice from the very beginning, but when I was out there earlier, I was kind of looking around and just kind of, because I'd been in there before, but it had been some time. But it's very clean, obviously. It's got a really nice customer waiting area. It's just a really efficiently run operation out there, so I tip my hat to Chuck and all the fine folks out there that are keeping this business alive and have done so for so many years. Okay, Lee, I think we've got 1 or maybe 2 more. Let's go to the next one. Okay, I think this was their 90th anniversary celebration here, and you notice they've kind of added it onto the name, and now it says Rocky Mount Radiator and Air Conditioning Incorporating, so incorporated, I should say. But anyway, this was another really nice write-up here in a telegram that appeared in 2017, February 2017. I think that's when they hit their 90-year in business mark. And as I said, they're not too far from hitting their 100th year. And lastly, Lee, this is today. This next picture is to where they're, there you go, there's the picture of the building today where they are on 301 out here south, on the right-hand side, you headed south on 301 out of Rocky Mount. Really nice facility, nice folks over there, do good work, and again, tip my hat to all the folks over there at Rocky Mount Radiator Works. All right, Lee, bring it back to me, if you would, and we'll, this is a good time to take our next commercial break. Folks, I've got some more pictures to show you. We're going to show you some old pictures from shiners and different things around town. But anyway, before we get to those, let's take our next commercial break. We'll be right back with more Wayback Wednesday. Don't go anywhere.
You're now watching Wayback Wednesday, sponsored by Flores Glass and Mirror Company, servicing the area since 1977 with residential and commercial work.
Hello, I'm Gus Tullis with Gus Tullis Insurance, and I'm here to talk to you about the extended open enrollment period for the Affordable Care Act, better known as Obamacare. Enrollment is available to anyone under age 65. Pre-existing conditions will not disqualify you, and I'm here to inform you of the subsidy that can be available to you based on your household income. You may not even be aware of the potential to improve your current subsidy. You need to take action because the benefits are available if you enroll between now and the August 15th deadline. Now I'd like to take a moment and share with you the annual household income chart. For example, this income chart shows a household of one earning a minimum annual income of $12,760 up to $51,040 and possibly more would qualify for a subsidy. Over the last 3 days, I've helped several folks qualify and sign up for the Obamacare plan. This could be you. To find out if you qualify for a general subsidy, call Gus Tullis Insurance at 252-937-6913. Your subsidy is waiting, but the August 15th deadline is fast approaching. Call me today, 252-937-6913.
I'm Daniel Moss, owner of Cornerstone Funeral Home, and I'd like to invite you and your family to give our family an opportunity to serve you in your time of need. And we offer a full line of funeral services, everything from visitations to graveside services to cremations on site with a live crematory, as well as a banquet hall to meet the catering needs of our families that we serve. We offer catering service. We offer refreshments prior to visitations and services of our family. And we want to invite you to come and experience the difference here at Cornerstone Funeral Home.
And meal preparation to our private duty care program, which combines all of our home care offerings in one package.
Tender Touch Home Care Services, where your needs are our concern.
You're now watching Wayback Wednesday, sponsored by Flores Glass and Mirror Company, servicing the area since 1977 with residential and commercial work.
And we're back. We're back. We just had a nice little segment covering Rocky Mount Radio Works and their long-run business in Rocky Mount. And you know, they were not the only radio repair shop to operate. Over the years, there's been a few others that I remember. But I stumbled across another one today that I had not heard of before. And I've only got one picture of it, and it was actually from the 1930 city directory. And it was referred to as the Reliable Radiator Works. Now, what's interesting about that is that the address for the Reliable Radiator Works, located at 231 South Washington Street, was the exact same address that Mr. W.L. Cockrell moved his business to in 1930. So apparently, there must have been, his business did some radio repair work too. Let's go ahead, Lee. Let's get this next picture up here on the screen. I think this actually might just be an ad. It's not a picture, but it's an ad. But I thought it was interesting. Okay, yeah, this was the location actually. I thought I had an ad too, but I didn't. The ad was a one-line listen. That's why I didn't bring it. But in any case, in 1930 city directory, there was listed a Reliable, and I only saw it in that 1 year, by the way. Reliable Radiator Works was listed at 231 South Washington Street. And as I said, that was actually the same address, 231 South Washington Street, for Mr. W.L. Cockrell's garage in 1930, and from there on, up until 1963 at least. So, again, I think, and Chuck made mention of this too. He said, you know, there may have been a wall or a few buildings separating the two of them, but I think they really pretty much did kind of help each other out. And that's just a neat little bit of history about the two businesses. Okay, I ran across another old ad today in the from 1937 that I had never, of a business I'd never heard of before. And Lee, if you'll put the next picture up there for us, Andrews Drug Company And this was on North Main Street. And this just caught my eye because I'd never heard of Andrews Drug before. And again, this was from 1937, so I don't know how long it had been in business. I didn't really have time to look and pursue the history of the business, so I don't know how long it was there prior to 1937 and how long it lasted beyond 1937. But I thought these prices were pretty neat, just interesting, I should say, to look at. Certainly things have changed in the last 80 years or so. But anyway, if anyone remembers Andrews Drug, and I dare say we don't have anybody watching tonight that remembers it if it didn't exist much beyond 37. But if you do remember, give us a call. 407-1111 is the number. I had never, of all the time we've been doing this show, we've talked about drugstores. We've been up and down Main Street showing pictures. And I got to say, I don't remember ever seeing a picture of a block, a part of city block of downtown Rocky Mount, and seeing a business with the name Andrews Drug Company. So I don't think it lasted very long, and it may have been eventually bought out or merged with another company that was more well known. It looks like 129 North Main Street. So I'm wondering if it may have, in later years, as I said, been absorbed by another company, maybe Almond or one of the other drugstores just took it over. So anyway, all righty. Earlier this week, I was looking at some ads in the city directory, as I'm often doing, preparing for the show, and I ran across an ad for a company called the Johnson Cotton Company. This was in a 1957 city directory. And Lee, if you'll pull this next picture up for us, something about this caught my eye. Number one, the John Deere emblem in the upper left-hand corner, up in the upper right-hand corner. And I got looking at it and I said, you know, I've seen that building before. And I kind of put two and two together, and I called and talked to Gus Tullis. And Gus was telling me that this was his father's business. Eventually, anyway, he started out managing. If you notice on the front, it says John Tullis, and behind the telephone pole, it's got MGR, John Tullis Manager. And eventually, Mr. Tullis took over this business, and it became Tullis Equipment, Tullis Tractor Company in later years. But this was in the 1957 city directory. And the next picture is this building today. So Lee, if you would, just pull it. There you go. And it's not the best shot. This is one of these Google Map shots that shows a street view of the building. But you can barely see the outline. After it was Tullis Tractor, of course, it became Lee Tractor Company. They've since painted over that as well. But anyway, this is on South Church Street, and it was, I never knew anything about Johnson Cotton Company. But Gus said that was eventually taken over by his father. I guess his father went to work there and eventually took over the business. And then it became a John Deere dealer, and in later years became known as Tullis Tractor Company. Okay, this next picture was one that caught my eye because I have a family member who's actually pictured in this picture. So Lee, if you would, pull up this next picture. In 1966, I got out of order, I'm sorry, my fault. This is actually the Rocky Mount Air Service crop duster, and this picture's come out of the Charlie Killebrew collection, by the way, from 1952, and it's an old crop duster, and I don't have any more history other than the fact that you see there on the plane, it's got a little advertisement, Rocky Mount Air Service, and the next picture, I think, Lee, might be an aerial view. There you go. This is the old Rocky Mount Airport over on Church Street. And I've seen some aerial pictures of the Rocky Mount Airport on Church Street before. I don't recall seeing this particular picture here, but look how barren the east side of Church Street, or 301, was at that time. This is from 1952, and there's literally nothing across the road from the airport at that time there. You see a bunch of planes out there in the foreground parked. I would venture to say probably the vast majority of those are private planes, most of them probably crop dusters, in fact. But it's quite a bit different now. But in the top of the picture, you can see like miles off in the distance, there's nothing, just open land. Okay, let's get this call. Hello, caller, you're on the air.
All right, that picture you're looking at right there now in the early 1950s, the building that is on the right-hand side of the screen is where the airport luncheonette was. And if you look at the picture, is I'm seeing it on my television with the scattered and discoloration behind that building is where the mud puddles were from the airport luncheonette. The street there, just above those two buildings, is US 301 business. And that building on the right-hand side of the screen is the airport luncheonette.
That's right.
And that building in those years would have been a dirt, mud puddle parking lot. If you had a small car, you might not want to park there long, but that's what you're looking at right there.
Yeah, and you know, another neat thing about this picture, on my computer at my office, I zoomed in on this picture, and that's the railroad track across the way, across that field, and that's a train on the track.
That's exactly right.
Yep.
And that there was, in those years, there was nothing out there north of the Tar River Bridge but farmland.
Yep. And the airport.
And the airport.
Yep. Yeah, this is a neat old picture here, and I've seen other aerial photographs of the airport, but I don't recall seeing this one before.
I've never seen that picture before, but that is a good photograph.
Yep, it sure is.
It's been back in the days when the goat man used to travel up and down US 301 with a caravan of goats.
I've heard of him.
He would camp out there. In 1952, I was 8 years old, and we used to get carried out there and watch him as he camped out there with a menagerie of goats right there in the vicinity of that airport.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, buddy. Thank you. Have a good night. All right. Yeah, I love these old pictures. It's neat to see what's transpired in the, oh golly, 60, 70 years or more since this picture was taken. You know, Charlie Killebrew was obviously a marvelous photographer, very talented, but he did a lot of aerial photography work too. And I mean, his clarity and his sharpness remained true, whether he was on the ground on terra firma taking a picture or up in an airplane. It's really neat to me. As I said, this is basically a copy of the picture that was online, but when I had the original on my computer and zoom in, you could actually see the individual box cars in that long line of trains in the kind of middle of the picture there up near the top. But again, the clarity, you can zoom in on these pictures and they're so clear, so crystal clear, and to be as old as they are, it speaks volumes about just what a very, very gifted photographer Charlie Killebrew was. Okay, Lee, so let's go to the next picture then. And I think these next two or three, we may not get a chance to get through all of these, but I ran across some pictures from the Shriners had an event in 1952. And if anyone knows anything about this at all, please call in and share what you remember. 407-1111 is a number, by the way. I don't recall, I know there in the years past there was a Shriners Parade, and I've got a couple of pictures we'll show you in a minute of the Shriners Parade. But it appears that there were some events either leading up to the parade or spanned a couple of days perhaps. And I don't know anything about what was going on here. It looks to be perhaps in some kind of tobacco warehouse maybe, I'm guessing. I don't know that for sure. It looks like they've kind of set a backdrop to the stand they're sitting on, stage or whatever there. But there was, I don't know, half a dozen or more pictures here in this group, and there was more than this, but a lot of them were very similar, so I only just picked out a handful of them. But let's go through these if you would, Lee. And there were daytime activities going on and nighttime activities going on. And you see here, I guess this is the Grand Poobah, or whatever you call the head guy with the Shriners back then. And again, I don't know. They were all in a collection, and there was probably 12 or 15 pictures in this grouping, and a lot of them were very similar, just different angles of the same shot and so forth. And I assume it was all related to the same event, the same Shriners Parade event. But since part of it was done at night, I'm guessing it was maybe an event that took place over a weekend, maybe. I'm not sure. But Lee, let's go ahead to the next. There's two or three more in this group. We'll go ahead and get through these. There you go. As you can see, this is, again, it looks to me to be nighttime. It does appear to be inside a tobacco warehouse. And again, I'm guessing this guy's a grand poobah, or whatever you call it, the head cheese in the Shriners Club. And please, I mean no disrespect, no offense to any Shriners in the viewing audience tonight. I'm just being lighthearted here. I don't know anything about the Shriners, so please don't take offense. I'm not even sure if poobah is an accurate term for any of these groups, but I've heard it in the past used to represent or describe the guy who's in charge of the festivities. So that's the only reason I mentioned the poobah there. All right, let's go to the next one then. There you go. Go back one, because that was the actual parade there. There you go. And it looks like on this particular day it was raining. This is here, obviously there's Epstein's there, and you see the post office in the background there. This float is being pulled by a tractor. And again, this was 1952. And this was in the Charlie Killer. And you see the folks on the second floor of Epstein's there, gathered in the window, looking out, watching the parade go by. I honestly don't know that I remember a Shriners parade. Maybe I did as a child. I'm not sure when they stopped having these. But this was in '52. I wasn't thought about then, so I was certainly not around to see this one. Okay, Lee, I think we're about out of time. Let's look real quickly. I think this next one is the last one. Oh, here we go. This is something I forgot was in this grouping. Someone called in a few weeks ago and mentioned that Z.B. Bullock had a lion in a cage. Well, I found this picture, and it was identified as Z.B. Bullock's lion. I don't remember ever seeing this before or seeing a picture before. And it's hard to say in this picture whether it's a female African lion. I don't see the mane, in other words, that you associate with a male lion, or whether it was a North Carolina cougar. That could have been either one. Well, we got a call. Let's get this call. This will be the last one for the night. Hello, sir. You on the air?
All right. From what I understand about that, Z.B. Bullock Jr., who was running the Z.B. Bullock Meat Company over there on Denton Street, he bought a lion when the circus, I don't know whether it was Ringling Brothers or Cole Brothers, coming through town. They sold Z.B. Bullock Jr. a lion, and he kept him in a cage out there in Inglewood, out there where old Mr. Z.B. Bullock started Inglewood in the 20s.
Right.
And the man bought that lion because he was in the meat business over there on Denton Street, making hot dogs and bologna, and he was in the meat business, and that's what a lion eats.
Absolutely.
He kept that lion out there, from what I understand, in a cage out there in his backyard. And I never knew anything about that, but a whole lot of people probably had some noticeable concern about that, just like the people up there in Raleigh had some concern about a venomous spitting cobra living up there in Raleigh.
Yes,
the man that owned that snake was 21 years old. He's got a lot of problems going on in his life.
He does indeed.
Caught with that snake.
His problem's only just begun, I'm afraid, too.
Well, you think about it. Next time you ride down anywhere around Inglewood, if you think there's a house anywhere back there that's got a full-grown lion living out there in a cage, it'll get your attention.
It would indeed. Okay, buddy. Look, thanks so much for calling in. I appreciate it here.
All right.
Have a good night. Folks, that's going to do it. We've run slam out of time again. Lee, bring it back to me. Let's wrap this thing up. There's one more Shriner picture there for you folks to look at, too. We had a couple more people we didn't get to tonight. We'll bring those in next week, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for your calls and your viewership, folks. It means more than you know. Have yourselves a great week. Take care of yourselves and be kind to each other. We'll see you next week and more Wayback Wednesday. Good night.
You're now watching Wayback Wednesday, sponsored by Flora's Glass and Mirror Company, servicing the area since 1977 with residential and commercial work.
Hello, I'm Gus Tullis with Gus Tullis Insurance, and I'm here to talk to you about the extended open enrollment period for the Affordable Care Act, better known as Obamacare. Enrollment is available to anyone under age 65. Pre-existing conditions will not disqualify you, and I'm here to inform you of the subsidy that can be available to you based on your household income. You may not even be aware of the potential to improve your current subsidy. You need to take action because the benefits are available if you enroll between now and the August 15th deadline. Now I'd like to take a moment and share with you the annual household income chart. For example, this income chart shows a household of one earning a minimum annual income of $12,760 up to $51,040 and possibly more would qualify for a subsidy. Over the last 3 days, I've helped several folks qualify and sign up for the Obamacare plan. This could be you. To find out if you qualify for a general subsidy, call Gus Tullis Insurance at 252-937-6913. Your subsidy is waiting, but the August 15th deadline is fast approaching. Call me today at 252-937-6913.
I'm Daniel Moss, owner of Cornerstone Funeral Home, and I'd like to invite you and your family to give our family an opportunity to serve you in your time of need. And we offer a full line of funeral services, everything from visitations to graveside services to cremations on site with a live crematory, as well as a banquet hall to meet the catering needs of our families that we serve. We offer catering service. We offer refreshments prior to visitations and services of our family. And we want to invite you to come and experience the difference here at Cornerstone Funeral Home.
And meal preparation to our private duty care program, which combines all of our home care offerings in one package.
Tender Touch Home Care Services, where your needs are our concern.